You're listening to Wycombe Sound, an election special programme with myself, Bob Johnston, having one-to-one interviews with the candidates who are standing in the Wycombe constituency at the general election on Thursday, the 12th of December. It's time now to hear from the Labour Party candidate, Khalil Ahmed.
My name is Khalil and I arrived in the UK when I was 4 years old. I was actually born in a place called Mirpur, which is in Azad, Kashmir. People may have heard of Kashmir. There's a disputed region of Kashmir, which is, I think, world-renowned now. Not a very nice place at the moment, or hasn't been for the last 72 years or whatever, but there was a part of it that sectioned off to Pakistan, known as Azad Jammu Kashmir, AJK for short. And that's where I live, in a place called Mirpur, where lots of people have gone to the UK from there, and quite a few have settled here in Wycombe, quite a huge majority, I must say. And that's where I'm from Azad Kashmir and Mirpur namely.
Where did you go to school?
All right, I went to local schools known as Belfield. They don't exist anymore, although yesterday I heard somebody reference that it was known as Disraeli School. I think they got that wrong. Belfield schools never don't exist anymore. They used to exist on Kelvin Close, just off Kelvin Close, and the other one was off Garrett's Way, which has now become Garrett's Red Kite Way and Kelvin Close, Kelvin Court or something, respectively.
It's difficult to keep up with all of the changes. Yes,
but so I often go there to canvass, and I realise, I say, well, I used to go there, and I could just picture, the English classroom or a geography classroom there.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, as we all can, going back that far.
Yes, indeed. So Belfield, was my first school. I was fortunate enough to start off at the very beginning. I missed out on any nursery years, but when I arrived here, I was fortunate enough to get all of my school education here. I then went on to Brentwood, which also no longer exists. However, the building still remains of some kind, and it's now known as the Downey School, or something else even. I don't know. But again, these were the two. So Belfield on to Brentwood.
Okay, and then after school, what then happened?
Then what happened, I didn't get the necessary grades to go straight into university, or even to go on to, I can't remember if it was sixth form but I didn't have the enough grades, so I enrolled in Bucks College at the time and done a BTEC National Diploma in IT, so that I had entry requirements to go on to university, which I did. So after completing my BTEC National Diploma, I then went on to University of Westminster to pursue a BSc Honours in Computing, which I'm proud to say that I completed and got a 2-2 Honours back in 1996.
And then going on into the working world.
Yes, then I went on into the working world, yes. My first job found myself at an IT help desk support role, a company called Diskel in Slough. I was there for about a year just to get the experience, which was good. I learnt off a very knowledgeable person who was very good as a teacher. Learnt lots off him, so I got my confidence in the working world and went on to a company called Micros Fidelio in Slough. Worked as a technical installations engineer, which took me from place to place all around the UK and Ireland, including Republic of Ireland too, which was a good job in the beginning, but afterwards it was wearing off on me because I was kind of living out of a suitcase. So a different day saw a different site. But there was a perk to it. It was a different hotel. So it was mainly 4 to 5 star hotels that I was at. So I had the pleasure of staying in a Marriott, to a Hyatt, to a Hilton, to an Intercontinental. You name it, I knew them like the back of my hand, and it was my forte. So I was enjoying it as well. But you can't carry that on when you're married and you have responsibilities. It kind of wore on me. I took it for 4 years and then I had to pack it in. I thought I'd move on to somewhere where I could settle down, but I think I took the wrong step. I went into another company that was a company that looked after hotel software, and that was De Vere Hotels. And again, it was no different. Apparently, this was more car driving rather than planes. So I'd done that for a year, and then
But still a lot of hotels, I'm imagining.
hotels again, yeah. So now it was kind of ingrained into me now. Hospitality, IT, hospitality, that was my forte now. So I thought I may as well just continue that. I applied for a couple of jobs in London, which I wasn't successful. But looking back, I was fortunate I didn't, because I didn't really like the commute into London. So I saw a job in on the outskirts of Heathrow, and a Marriott hotel known as the Renaissance London Heathrow Hotel, which I knew fairly well. I had visited it on many occasions through my previous role, and people knew me, and I was kind of, all the boxes were ticked. The only box left to tick was to agree a salary package. So we agreed a salary package, and off I went as an IT manager in the Renaissance London Heathrow Hotel. Again, I didn't expect to remain there for more than 3 or 4 years, wanting to climb up the Marriott ladder. Sadly, it didn't work out as expected, and in the global financial crash in 2008, everything was very iffy, and I didn't want to take any gambles, so I just remained put at that time, took out a redundancy insurance just in case. You never knew what waited around the corner. So I remained there for a good few years thereafter, until such time when the Marriott hotel itself, which was owned by a franchisee based in Europe, got taken over by a different company. And that company had different work ethics, slightly different to the way Marriott operated it, whereas Marriott managed it and franchisee just took the profits. These guys actually ran it and took the profit as well, but kept the Marriott flag. So their working styles were not, should we say, compatible with mine, and I then parted ways at that time, and it took redundancy. So I took redundancy at that time, which perhaps, again in hindsight, was not a good move, because I've ended up where I am now. But no, I don't regret where I am now, to be completely honest. That's where I shifted towards politics, because I left that job, and for a few months I did have my redundancy insurance to sit back on, which I'd been paying in for the last 5 years. So least I could do is at least have some benefit from that. Having worked all my working life since the age of 12, from a market store all the way through, I thought it was only right that I managed to. But I didn't. I must say that the job centre experience wasn't all well, and I'll probably go into that, because again, that is one of the reasons why I was determined to stand up in politics, because I feel that the system is broken and it's not adequate, it's not fit for purpose. It doesn't. It unjustly penalises some people, and I just dislike injustice of any kind towards anybody. But anyway, I then done a few contracting jobs, tried my hand at a recruitment agency, didn't work, and actively then pursued politics. And we are now here, and me as a parliamentary candidate for the Wycombe constituency.
Standing for
Well,
MP.
indeed. I mean, this is a town which as I said, I've been here since the age of 42 years now. It is a wonderful place. It was wonderful, but hasn't had that sparkle. The sparkle has been lost over the years. I've seen that change. I think many people that have lived here or called Wycombe their home would have realised the same as well, that Wycombe hasn't got that same sparkle. Its pizzazz has gone. There's been changes here, although for the better, but I think it's let it down, and we've lost that culture and the historic meaning of the town, which I think is a sad thing, and I'd like to bring that back and put pride back into Wycombe if I can, if I am elected as the MP.
Well, when you're on the doorstep speaking to people, what's the main issue that they're bringing up? What's the most important thing that people are thinking in Wycombe right now?
Well, it's mixed on the doorstep, because I was expecting Brexit to be number one issue. It isn't the number one issue. There is lots of people concerned with local domestic issues, which coincides with what I would do if somebody was to knock on my door. And based on that, I've worked out 6 pledges that I've got on my leaflet, and I think that resonates with most of the people. Now, when I actually talk about my first pledge, I would probably say 95% of the people instantly give me their attention and start saying, yes, now that is something that we can hear. And that is the campaigning of the return of an A&E and maternity department back to Wycombe. That is by far the main sore point for most people, I think. Followed by, again, based on my experience here as a counsellor and as a resident, of course, I see that our education system has been starved as well, and we're not getting the quality of education that we once did. Again, in the council, I've seen people going on the housing ladder or housing register and currently it stands over 1,300 people, which is not very good by any standards. I'm sure that many of the towns are in a worse scenario, but for me, my town, I think we could do better. I think that poor decisions have been made over the years. Transport, again, bus service has been slashed. I stood up, was vocal about that in council, saying that we need to do more in order to try and encourage people to use public transport rather than using their own motor vehicles, which has a knock-on effect in terms of climate pollution. And Wycombe, most people know that suffers poor air quality standard that we are maintaining, especially on London Road and the M40 corridor. That's not good. And I think some decisions that have been made perhaps contribute towards that, and I don't think that they were the best decisions, but I've been vocal about that. I've got no... So on the doorstep, there's wide and varied issues, but for me, the biggest one I would say on the doorstep was the return of A&E. And again, there were lots of people who had their position on the EU referendum. What my position was, people wanted to know what my position was, and if I make it...
Which was my very next question, so
you
well
were
done.
going to ask me, all right, okay. My position on the EU referendum is that I will back Labour's plan to put any Brexit deal with a credible deal that our government, Labour government and majority government, will negotiate within 3 months and then put it back to the people within 6 months, along with the option to remain. My personal position, I voted in 2016 to remain, and my position hasn't changed. So I will actively seek to campaign for remain should this referendum come forward. But as it stands at the moment, that isn't the case. 2016 referendum applies, and I am respectful of the referendum outcome as it was, and I have no problem in accepting democracy. So let it be known, any people out there that have decided to leave and feel that I'm not compatible, I will respect that entirely. However, the position of our party is, and I back that, but given my position, if anybody was asked, I am for remain, and that's what I will do in the future. And if I can always also make it known that 52%, for those that didn't know, of this district, I will be clear with that, district actually voted to remain. I further checked that, and I have found out that the district result is not far off from the constituency, so it's 51.5. So it's probably about 0.5% difference, but nevertheless, Remain were in front here in Wycombe. So for me, that is paramount, that the local electorate that you represent, that you are reflective of them as well. So I would be concerned if my position was to remain and the majority had voted to leave, then there would be a bit of a problem there, because I felt if I was the MP, I would have given the opportunity to listen to my electorate. And if I were the MP during 2016, the first thing I would have done is hold a series of town hall meetings and say, okay, guys, tell me what you want. I would also put forward my position. I wouldn't just blindly just go by the people. I would put my forward. We would have a healthy debate or debates, as many as we required. And if that were the case, that people felt that I should be back in, then that's where I would be. But we are where we are.
Yeah.
And... so you got my EU referendum stance.
Okay. You mentioned earlier on about air quality and London Road. We've recently obviously had the protest by Extinction Rebellion. What did you feel about those?
This morning I was at the Wycombe climate strike up with the other candidate who's standing on one policy item.
Ed Gemmell, I think that was.
Ed Gemmell, yeah. And I've also attended one in September that he had organised at Wycombe High, but I attended the one here in the town centre. I think that we need to be protesting against climate change. We need to be sending out the message. Perhaps some of the methods used by Extinction Rebellion might not go down well, and I think that probably could be reviewed. I don't agree with entirely their methods, but I completely agree with what they are trying to achieve in terms of trying to make people realise that we need to look after our planet, which is badly damaged, and we're continuing to badly damage it. So I am all for climate change, but we need to think back, stand back, and think what is an appropriate way of dealing with this, rather than impacting everyday lives of people. And I think that's causing more misery and more mayhem, and people are being put off it. Nevertheless, it is true, it is happening. No matter whoever denies it, climate change is real. But like I said, you still can't inconvenience people in their daily lives, because you don't know what hardship people are facing, right, in current days of austerity that we're, encountering.
For the record, I should say that we are recording this on the afternoon of Friday, the 29th of November, and it is going out next week. I'm only saying that because Peter Sims, the Green candidate, he referred to the strike that took place this morning, but we recorded him a couple of days ago. So just to clarify things for people who might be listening, thinking, hang on, that was last week. That is why Khalil was saying it was today, because we're recording it on the 29th of November. Another question locally, another local issue for you. Grammar schools in Buckinghamshire. How do you feel about that?
Okay, grammar schools. Nationally, party-wise, we know what our position is. I don't think that the Labour Party is in favour of grammar schools. I must confess, my three children went to grammar schools themselves. But overall, I disagree with the concept of grammar schools. I don't think that it's not inclusive enough, because I think that the 11 plus disadvantages certain people with different backgrounds, or in terms of ability to pay and get them primed up to get in. I don't think that it's a straightforward case of anybody just sitting an 11 plus. I think that without prior tuition, in most cases, I don't think that a child can actually get into grammar school, especially looking at the 11 plus that my children took. There's no way that I could have ever passed that answer, and I would really challenge people out there to do the 11 plus adults alike, and I don't think it's a fair way. And it's just how a child feels if they've tried so hard and didn't get in, and how they're made to feel in later life. And I just think that the whole concept could be reviewed, and I believe that a fully inclusive education is better than just having the current setup as it is. We are one of 3 counties, I believe, that still got grammar schools. So it's not as if it's across the board that grammar schools are there. So there is a reason why grammar schools don't exist everywhere up and down the country. And I think that for me, grammar schools are not the way forward.
How do you feel about the NHS as an organisation?
NHS is a wonderful organisation. It is the best thing, I think, the UK has had ever since it was created by the Labour government, I must add. It has looked after me, my children, all of my 4 children were born here at the local hospital. They are wonderful. I've had first-class treatment. My mum's been in there for a hip operation. My wife suffered aneurysm, and I cannot doubt the professionalism and the quality of service. However, the reality is it's slowly degrading, not because of by any way the NHS, the quality is there, but they are being starved. The resources aren't there. The resources that are there are overworked and underpaid, underappreciated. They are doing as much as they can. But people, when they go and expect things to be done ASAP because they've got a bleeding head or whatever, there's so much that can be done. And I just think that the NHS, it's a very sad state of affairs at the moment, the way we see our NHS. And I just think that that's neglecting something so brilliant that we have, and it could be so much better. I feel for the nurses and doctors that have to do this job daily. I have come across a fair few of them who put on such a brave face, but yet behind them, not to sound political, there's tears that they hold back, and emotions, which it needs to change. And I'm sorry to say, it can change. We don't have to be this way. We can be different. We can, make our NHS, the best that it can be. It is a wonderful organisation, and I just think that it's not getting the credit it deserves, and I don't think that, current government, especially, or the previous government, since 2010, have dealt justice to the NHS. Making grand gestures towards the NHS now, I think, is too little too late. You don't take my word for it. I think you just have to see shows like Question Time or whatever. You can see other members of the public addressing it, and you have even members of the NHS, staff of the NHS, call it out and tell you how they are actually going through. So,
what can we do to reduce the amount of people who are using food banks and also the amount of homelessness?
Improve their quality of life. Universal credit does not help. That is one of the major factors, I believe, that people are driven to use food banks. 5-week delay. There is, I don't have the stats here in front of me, but I believe that there is over 7,000 people that are receiving universal credit here in Wycombe. Most people that I've met who are on universal credit are not very happy in terms of what they are getting. Problems do occur, even with universal credit. One missed payment, and that could be them out on the street. That could be them needing the need of a food bank. I've always I support our local food bank. I think they do a great job, a tremendous job. But sadly, we should have no need for a food bank. As the fifth richest economy of the world, we should not need the use of food banks. But sadly, the case is that the need for food banks, right, is growing by the day. Actual food banks have grown, right, into thousands. And this is not a good reflection. They're a lifeline, absolutely. I strongly disagree with a certain member of the cabinet who suggested that the use of food banks is people who've got a cash flow problem and it's not poverty. It is absolutely absurd. It is. If it were me, I wouldn't want to go go to use food banks unless I really had to. And there's too many people, and nobody's going to come up to you and say, I needed to go to a food bank, right? People don't want to, expose their, problems. But severe poverty is the reason why they're being used. And I think current stats are showing you that there is over 14 million people in the country that are, described as living in poverty. That says something. The UN has criticised us as a nation in terms of, the levels of poverty, right, that exist in one of the richest economies of the world. I think that needs something waking up to and dealing with.
If you become our MP and you're in the House of Commons and you were invited to put forward a private members bill, what will the private members bill be about?
One of my pledges is about building new houses. Now, we have, without any shadow of a doubt, a problem with people that are classed as homeless, rough sleepers. We have a problem like any other town. But again, I'm concerned about Wycombe itself. If I became an MP, I would propose a private member's bill to suggest that we have any town with a population of more than 50,000 people to have a certain designated shelter for the homeless, that should anybody fall on hard times, that the authority could actually fund them. Right, so this would be funded by central government, and for us to be able to house them rather than them going from one place to another, the authority actually took responsibility of them. Try to obviously improve their lives, try to give them the skills, and if they were affected by drug habits or anything like that, give them the support that they need. Firstly, identify why they're there, but if the inevitable did happen, but there was some refuge for them to go, last thing I would like to see is people out on the street. We have got far more rough sleepers in our town than what our council that I am part of cares to admit. And I say that on the basis that Wycombe Homeless Connection, a very wonderful establishment, does great work. But again, I just see that there should be very little need and ever decreasing need for Wycombe Homeless Connection to serve the people that it does. As I said, I'm completely supportive of what they do. But if our systems were working correctly, then Wycombe Homeless Connection shouldn't have to exist, right? In the best way, I'm saying that. I went to a conference of theirs and they said that their demand has grown over the last year. They've now even sought a marketing department. Wycombe Homeless Connection, a charity, right? Now having a marketing department, right, says something, right? That means that Wycombe District Council are failing their people. So with them quoting over 150 odd people at least, right, sleeping rough compared to in their tens with Wycombe District Council, I feel that if I were an MP, a private member's bill in order to seek refuge, winter's coming, there's winter night shelter that the Homeless Connection set up from January to March. That's something, but it doesn't cover. It is a freezing day today, as you can imagine, and there are homeless people out there. And something needs to be put into place for whatever reason that they, find themselves in the situation they are. Homelessness Reduction Act. I'd like to just cover on that. The government brought in the Homelessness Reduction Act, and to my knowledge, I've questioned the council on this. I haven't been convinced with the answers, because that's been in force since last year, at least 18 months, and it hasn't done the job that it's supposed to do. Homelessness reduction. And it hasn't, done what it has. There are certain ways in terms of how it works, and I don't feel that it is actually delivered upon what it is. So I think that there's failings. Even central government have failed to grasp the problem. So whilst we understand and get a grip on the situation, just building more houses will not just, fix the problem. Building houses will take time. But that doesn't fix the problem, because people will still find themselves in a situation where they might become homeless. So if we have somewhere where there is a matrix of where we could have a possible shelter, so at least there is something refuge that they don't have to end up on the street, and nobody has to think that they're going to, where they're going to sleep, be sleeping on a park bench or something like that. So that's, if I were the MP, I would probably consider. I think that's quite worthy. You'd agree?
Yeah, indeed. Again, if you were the MP, if there was a decision in the Labour Party, if they formed a government, or even if they didn't, that you disagreed with, would you go along with the party whip, or would you choose to vote against?
It depends what it is, you see. It depends in terms of the constituency I represent, right? Because for me, I wouldn't go against my party line unless my constituents here, the constituency I felt, and it was putting them at a disadvantage. So my constituency is a priority, but I am a member of the Labour Party as well, right? So I have to be respectful of both. But like I said, I would go against the party whip in a situation where the situation arose where it was going directly against my constituents.
Last couple of questions. What do you consider that the role of an MP is or should be?
The role of an MP is to service its town, champion its town, serve its constituents regardless of party affiliation whatsoever, be available for your constituents at most times. I know that you can't be there all the time, but I'd like to have an open door policy as much as I can. I know that I will probably regret and take back my words in time to come if I am elected, but I'd like to feel that an MP is approachable and somebody that can be easily reached. If I am elected, I will be trying to get a constituency office as central as possible, something which I feel that everybody is welcome. My campaign office is situated in the town. I invite people to come in, question me, speak to me, get a flavour of what I'm like and what I can offer, and I would trying to do the same exactly if I were the MP. Naturally, I would have to be in Westminster most of the time too, but I'd like to be able to think that people saw me fairly regular, just like my ward people can probably do, and not something that people felt that I was showing my face only when an election or when it mattered. So an MP is somebody that cares for the town, understands the town, feels if the town is upbeat enough, and try and harmonise the town as much as we can, because I want to get that one community feeling as much as we can, because I feel that Brexit has caused too much division. There's other factors, right, that cause division, and I'd like to obviously bring it back together as much as I can. So just because I if I'm elected, will be a Labour MP, that wouldn't stop the door from anybody, right, from any party affiliation, reaching out to me for help. I'll be more than happy.
If you were our MP, would you seek to have a second home nearer Westminster, or would you continue to live in Wycombe?
For me, Wycombe. As it stands at the moment, I wouldn't give up my, I think Wycombe is my home, and that's where I would seek to live. I don't see we're only 30 minutes away from London. I don't see the justification of having a second home near Westminster. If we were miles and miles away, perhaps that could be a scenario, but I don't see what justification there would be for having a London home.
And there's another chance to hear that interview on our website, which is wycomesound.org.uk. The full list of people who are standing in the Wycombe constituency in the general election on Thursday, the 12th of December, are as follows. Khalil Ahmed for Labour, Steve Baker for the Conservatives, Tony Brodel for the Liberal Democrats, Ed Gemmell, who is standing as an independent candidate, Peter Sims for the Green Party, Vijay Sarow for UKIP, and Julia Wassell for the Wycombe Independents. That concludes tonight's election special here on Wycombe Sound. Tomorrow from 6 p.m, I will be speaking to Tony Brodel, standing for the Liberal Democrats, Steve Baker for the Conservatives, and the Green Party's Peter Sims.